Welcome to Mobilefitlab After Hours.
I'm Bella.
And I'm Joey Donalo, and this is episode 9 of Mobilefitlab After Hours.
Yeah, we did 2 this week.
We did 1 yesterday.
So, that's pretty electric.
And
we have
the last one was posted on Sunday.
Yes. And we have a very special guest today. We're here with
Lori Gravish-Hertak.
Nice to meet you, Lori. I'm saying that for everybody listening to the podcast. So we're going to start just by introducing yourself, what you do for work, and something that you love to do outside of work, or maybe work is what you love to do. Just a short background on who you are.
Also for me too, because this is our first time
This is
meeting.
our first meeting.
So
This is lovely. Thank you so much for both having me on your podcast. It's such a pleasure. So my name is Lori Gravish-Hertak, and I'm an assistant teaching professor at Penn State University in the Department of Kinesiology. And I was born and raised in Milesburg, Pennsylvania, about 20 miles from here, and completed the undergraduate education in exercise sports science, which now has been morphed into movement science of kinesiology. And then I went on to graduate school for a degree in cardiac rehabilitation. So I became a cardiac rehabilitation director in the State College area and worked alongside of a physical therapist for about 8.5 years. And then I kind of slowly transitioned into the aging adult population. So I was the first wellness coordinator for the Village at Penn State Life Care Retirement Community for Penn State. And my role at the university is multitask. I not only teach internship classes because I'm the internship coordinator, but I also do a lot of enriched learning. I'm really passionate about engaged learning outside the classroom. So trying to get students involved in other types of facilities that they don't necessarily get in the State College area, taking them on educational trips. And also I serve as an alumni coordinator, connecting with our alumni across the United States and internationally. And things that I like to do in my spare time, I like kayaking a lot. I do a little bit of running from time to time. I like restorative yoga, but I'm game for just about anything.
Yeah.
Outdoor movement activities.
Yes, definitely outdoor movement.
Where are some of the places that you've gone on the educational trips?
I've been taking students for about 26 years to the American College of Sports Medicine International Health and Fitness Summit, and I've collected the data, and we've taken almost 605 students in the last 26 years. So places like Los Angeles, Long Beach, California, Austin, Texas, Arlington, Virginia. Next year we're going to Chicago again. So
Cool.
They vary the site and location, and they vary the speakers, which is nice. So students get some nice cutting edge technology of based educational learning.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that program. You don't have to just be in kines, right? Or do you?
No, this program is open up to all majors of the Penn State campus. It really is about professional engagement and allowing students the opportunity to be very creative in exercise design. So you may have an engineering student that is going to go into a career of engineering, but they have great passion about strength and conditioning or functional movement. And this is a nice opportunity to be able to tap into what we have to offer within the kinesiology curriculum.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. So you grew up in Milesburg, and then you started studying exercise science. Was it exercise science?
It was exercise sports science.
Okay, because we were just talking about this. We had Jill Garrigan on.
Oh, Jill, yes.
And so she went to Penn State, and when she was there, she did marketing with either minor or double major in, it was called corporate exercise or corporate movement or something like that, which I guess is what was like one of the kines type of things. But that was before kines was kines, right? So
yes, they had some minors in the day. They had a gerontology minor, and they also had this exercise minor. But the exercise sports science really has been in existence for many years.
Okay.
And it was just over the last, I would say, 17 years that it actually morphed into a different name change of kinesiology.
Okay, gotcha. So what brought you into studying exercise science? Did you do a lot of sports growing up? Like, was your family very active? How did you know that was what you wanted to study? Because going into college, I had no idea, like zero idea. I get that. And I didn't declare kines as my major until the end of my sophomore year, which is part of the reason why I'm here for 5 years, I think. So
so I started, with elementary school activities such as dance, after school dance, like modern dance. I was in swimming at the YMCA, and then involved in sports throughout high school, softball and track and field and basketball. And I think that the turning point for me to go to Penn State University for exercise science is I served as a high school athletic trainer for our high school football team at Baldigo Area High School.
Oh, cool.
And this was before the era of a lot of transitions between liability of what students could do and what their capabilities. So back in 87 through 90, I was allowed to be an athletic trainer as a high school student and wrap and tape the football players. And I really had a passion about that rehab process and about muscle movement, muscle memory, and biomechanical strides. And so I said to the physician on the sidelines, I really love this. This is fascinating. He said, well, Penn State has an exercise sports science program. And so lo and behold, I did the undergraduate discipline. And when you're going through that curriculum, you're not quite sure where you're going to take it because you can pivot in so many different ways. You can go into allied health, physical therapy, you can go corporate wellness. And I had a wonderful mentor who actually just passed away this year, Dr. Carl Stadefalk, who taught at Penn State University and was the first American College of Sports Medicine president of the foundation. And he said to me, you have some great skills and talents in your clinical testing areas. We would like to hire you on the side for some of our research testing. And I said, this is really fun. And they were bringing in corporate sponsors like Eastman Kodak. They were bringing in the FBI. And I would test their body composition, do stress testing procedures, flexibility assessments. And I said, this is fantastic, Dr. Stadefalk. How can I now take it to the next level? And he said to me, I would like you to go to East Stroudsburg University and go there for their cardiac rehabilitation program.
Oh my goodness.
I know, and I never questioned
it. This is what you're doing.
Yeah, so I never even visited the school. I just said, if Dr. Stadefalk thinks this is a fit, I will register. So I showed up. I got accepted to the program. And on the first day, I remember they said, everybody here did a tour and had fun. I was like, I didn't do a tour. I was like, am I new to this? And I just trusted Dr. Stadefalk. And so then I went in this master's program and really had a passion. And that's kind of where it then led me into the cardiac rehabilitation side of things.
Okay. Awesome. So you just put your trust in him. You were like, well, you got me here and I love this.
I put my trust in him. And then going through that curriculum, honestly, it was almost like a refresher review session. There were only maybe 2 courses that were brand new, but everything else was just a refresher, and I kind of breezed through the program.
Was that 2 years long?
It was an accelerated 1-year program.
Oh, okay.
So you do it over the course of 1 full year. So you're doubling your credits, doubling your clinical hours at hospitals and rehabilitation centers throughout the Pocono and Lehigh Valley area.
So that must have been a crazy year then.
It was almost like med school, to be honest with you. There was barely any sleep. You were studying. You would get up in the morning, go to a clinical. You drive 50 miles to a clinical, have to come back for a 2:00 exam. 4:00 you're in clinicals again, and you pretty much did that 5 days a week.
And that wasn't an accelerated master's program. That was like, it wasn't a master's, or it was?
No, it was. It was an accelerated master's program.
Okay.
And then at the end of the program, you had to do 2 things. One, the American College of Sports Medicine came in to test you to be certified as a clinical exercise specialist. And so today, if we fast forward today, knowing what we know about the internet, now you can take those tests online as computer-based testing centers. But normally they would bring them to approved, endorsed universities. So you would do a written exam in the morning and then your practical in the afternoon.
Okay.
But what is unique about the American College of Sports Medicine is they host several certifications, and the one that I hold, they only have a pass rate of about 54% of the people that take it pass it. So it's all about rigor, and they don't want every person out there to be able to achieve that task. So I feel pretty honored that I was able to not only pass that certification, but then, sit for your clinical final, your comprehensives.
So for anyone listening who might be going into college or be in college and find some of this interesting and be like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm interested in exercise. I like working hands-on with people. And they just don't know what they're doing right now, and they might want to go this route. Can you explain what a clinical exercise specialist actually is, and why you might want to do that?
Yeah, so within the field of clinical exercise physiology, you can work in a couple different fashions. You can work in a research setting if you choose to. You can work in a university setting teaching. Mm-hmm. You can work for a physical therapy practice that wants to offer some type of clinical testing. And you could work for corporate America. So like there could be a corporate fitness center such as Nabisco, IBM, different companies that are offering corporate fitness. Or you could work for big pharma and be able to test patients and clients. So sometimes pharmaceutical companies like to collect a lot of data for research. So they will pay companies and say, hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars if you bring people in and test our clientele and tell us the results. So it can be anything from body composition profiling to flexibility assessments, muscular training assessments. I even like to morph a little bit off of the American College of Sports Medicine. I like NSCA, and I also like the NASM certification, National Academy of Strength and Conditioning, because those organizations offer functional movement screens. And I think based on where we are as a society, we're so used to being on devices a lot. We get a lot of forward posture, and we're trying to really correct different movement patterns. So I think the NSCA and NASM do a great job on functional movement.
Yeah. Because in my clinical exercise classes now in Kines, we learn both the clinical testing and the functional movement testing. So.
Yes, and you really have to, if you're an individual going into a career such as corporate fitness or exercise physiology, or even personal training for that matter, it's about effective communication strategies. You may have great sound knowledge, and you might have great skills, but do you have the functional ability to see it all out with your clientele and have a great, what I would refer to as a bedside manner? If you can't present the information in an effective way, you're going to have less compliance of your clients or your patients.
And you need to be able to perform those tests in an effective way. Even as a personal trainer, you want measurable results.
Measurable outcomes.
Especially with virtual training, because you're not there to physically correct.
Yeah, so that's a challenge with virtual training, because like when you're in a clinical setting or when you're in a gym setting, you can apply those tests to somebody. When you're doing virtual training,
you have to have really good communication.
Those communication skills have to be it has to be as close to hands-on as possible, because you're not there with them. So.
Yeah, and I've seen that since COVID and that pivot. We have several students that have great studios, and they've pivoted in that direction. And I've watched them quite frequently, and they've really grown in that field of that strategy, because you do have to be very precise. You just cannot go through the motions and say, another rep, okay, breathe or hold it. Yeah. You have to know exactly what's not functioning, because then you have what I refer to as compensatory changes. People compensate patterns where they're weak in an area, and then they wonder why do I need a knee replacement? Why do I need a hip replacement? Because you've compensated in something that you didn't really build up a great level of flexibility and then foundational strength gains.
Yeah. Sure. So after your master's, then you said you started working at the Village. So that's with seniors. Did you have an experience doing your master's that you were like, I want to work with an older population? Or was that kind of just what fell into your lap?
When I was going through my master's program, I had a graduate assistantship with a professor that graduated from Penn State University, Dr. Arnie Golfus, who's now deceased. And he ran a laboratory at East Stroudsburg University for an autistic foundation. His son is autistic, And so I then had a grad assistantship in that on Thursday nights with the entire Pocono region of autistic individuals from the age of 5 to like 85 years old. So we had an hour of land exercise, and then we morphed into an hour of aquatic fitness, which was really fun. Like I've never witnessed a group of individuals more excited about aquatic fitness than autistic children. Like it would be 9 o'clock. It would be 9 o'clock at night, and they would be flicking the lights, saying, "Hello, it's time. We're shutting the lab." And they would know that the children would be swimming. They would know. They would understand that it was time to go. They would just pretend not to hear you because they didn't want to get out of the pool. They wouldn't cause a scene, but they had fun. So it was wonderful to work in that domain. But then when I left graduate school, working in cardiac rehabilitation / physical therapy, I had a great passion with the aging adult population because when you go into an initial evaluation, it's not about a 10-minute conversation. Sometimes you're scheduling 45 minutes to an hour. You want to hear the timeline. They have a story to tell. And you have to be very patient and understand that timeline of how that will progress, of why they might have tight hamstrings or why they may have lower back discomfort. And so I just felt the need to work in that domain. And so what happened was the village at Penn State was starting to fill their units, but they weren't open yet. And there became an availability. They were looking for a wellness coordinator to take over their program, build their curriculum, their fitness curriculum, their therapeutic curriculum. And I put my name in the hat and said, I'd love to do this. And sure enough, they said, we have a nice agreement that you could still teach at Penn State with your kinesiology, being a professor there, but this would kind of be your research aspect. We want you to be their fitness wellness coordinator. So I designed their entire curriculum, which still holds true today, what they're doing.
Oh my goodness.
What's that like? What's their curriculum like?
So there's a few different things. So we have land-based exercise. We also have aquatics. But for land-based exercise, there are certain days of the week that it's for more high-functioning aging adults that don't necessarily require a wheelchair or an assistive device. But then we have other scheduled days of the week that maybe individuals need more one-on-one attention or the group sizes are a little bit smaller. So for example, aquatic fitness, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m., maybe for more high-functioning aging adults, whereas a Tuesday, Thursday class, I referred to it as the Dolphin Club. I didn't want to give them any type of a title that was like an adaptive word that produced a stigma or a bias. And so they loved that. They felt proud, like, we're part of the Dolphin Club. I was like, yeah, what do we get? And I was like, we're gonna get patches for a t-shirt here. We're part of the Dolphin Club. And there was one gentleman who was a retired professor at Penn State University, won a Nobel Peace Prize in the agricultural world. Can't remember what he did. I think it was something like he was the first to artificially inseminate an animal of some sort. And he won this Nobel Peace Prize. But over the course of his life, he was stepped on by so many cattle and high-end animals that he developed neuropathy and poor circulation in his lower extremities.
No way.
Yeah, and his feet turned blackish purple, and there was a period of maybe 3 years where he never walked. Never walked, but he loved swimming. So he came down and said, I want to join your aquatic club. So we had a pool lift. It was amazing. We put him in the pool lift, strapped him in, and I said, we're not going to get you out of the pool lift. I just want you to do some hip AB adductions, some leg extensions, some arm movements. That was on a Monday. And Wednesday, we put him in a water belt in the shallow end. He took his first steps in 3 years. So he was with an intern. We're walking him. The intern kind of looks behind him and looks at me and is like, oh my God. She's like, the tears are coming down her face. So we go through the whole session. At the end, her name's Vanessa. I said, but what did this mean to you, Vanessa? She said, this changed my entire aspect of life. I now want to go into geriatric nursing. Yeah. And that's what she's doing today. And so he took his first steps with aquatic fitness, but it really is about, not having barriers, because sometimes people assume, they're aging adults. Yeah. They can't do this. They can't hold a plank. I can tell you right now, I can take you to the village at Penn State and show you 85-year-old residents that can do a plank on a gymnic ball and do all kinds of amazing exercises. It may require a simple modification, but we can get them to go beyond that level.
Also, you're going into rehabilitation. Like, to go into something like that and be like, oh, I don't want to work with them because they have all these limitations. Like, that is what you are there for. Like,
and you learn
so much you can do.
And you can learn so much from an aging adult, just hearing their stories, or they give you advice on life. I just had taken my class there the other night for a poster forum, and the student said, this was amazing. Like, I thought we were just going to do posters and walk out of here. I said, no, we're going to do a little Q&A. And so they equally learned as much from the residents as the residents learned from them.
Yeah. So at the same time, you were teaching at Penn State?
Yes.
You said you were, because
yes,
there was like a deal where you could do this.
There was like a deal where instead of doing research, the coordination of the internship program was my research base. So I served about 25 hours a week in-house, and then the rest of the time I was teaching.
What were you teaching?
I was teaching many things. I used to teach kinesiology 456, which was fitness appraisal, which
I just took that.
Which Carl Stadefalk originated that course, Dr. Carl Stadefalk. So I had taken the course, learning about all these assessments and EKG interpretation and stress testing and so forth. And so I got to teach that. And I used to teach adapted physical education for our department for kinesiology and also within the special education department. And then because I was working around aging adults, I then morphed into scientific basis of the older adult, which was a writing intensive course, Kines 481W. But then when I took over the internship program, they said, this is a lot of administrative role. You need to give up kinesiology 456. And it was like, it just ripped me. I was like, no, I can't give it up. And they said, do you want this or not? I'm like, I do, but I don't. And I said, okay, fine. I ripped the Band-Aid off. And so then I kind of recrafted the internship program, the pre-internship and the internship program. And then as the years progress, after, let's say, I'm on my 24th year at teaching in the university, I now morphed into a new course that I built called Interdisciplinary Study to Street Medicine. So it's taking students that are interested into the allied healthcare professions, such as medical school, physician assistant programs, chiropractic, or public health or social work, and then taking them into the trenches of Los Angeles, to the epicenter of homelessness, with two of our alums that run USC Keck School of Medicine. So this spring was our first launching, and we will then in 2 weeks go on that trip where they will go out to Los Angeles and get to witness street medicine being practiced in the field.
That's
very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I know it's going to be. I did it last year as a risk management strategy, but this year I'm just so truly honored to be able to take students.
So at some point, did you kind of leave the position at the Village? You set everything up, and then you were like, I'm taking on more roles.
I did that for about 8.5 years, and then I said to my department head, I've mastered it to the highest level that it needs to be at. Like I've even taken it to the point where I've gone to the corporate office in Memphis, Tennessee, and spoken at their national conference every year. And I would go and consult with other facilities to go make their programs better, where they had problems and issues, and troubleshoot those needs. And I told my department head, I've mastered this to the highest level. It's time to pass the baton off to someone else. And he said, okay. And then there we go. I was then full sailing onto more creative design in the department.
So what was the doctor's name that you said who kind of told you you're going east, or encouraged you?
That was Dr. Carl Stadefalk. And he still lived in State College, all these years. And I would pick him up and take him to the waffle shop for breakfast even during COVID, every few months. And we would just talk fun, and every now and then he'd like to talk, business and shop. How's the department? And he would come to some of our events, our alumni events. And he just really set me on a great path.
Well, what I think is really cool is that he encouraged you to do those opportunities. You admired his research, and you're kind of now full circling in the position where you dabbled in doing the Village stuff, doing all of that, using clinical research in many different outlets, and now you're in the position where you are that person for a lot of students, as he was for you. You know, so like connecting people to different opportunities, bringing people out to hands-on experiences. So it feels like a full circle moment. Like you came in, you do what he did for you.
It is such an epiphany that you mentioned that, because it does feel full circle that when I'm in my office, I feel his presence and I'm thinking, yes.
Yeah.
I remember being in these shoes many years ago, and now I'm able to, help students navigate careers, internships, alumni connections, any of it, all of it. And to be honest with you, when COVID struck and people were like stressed out about what are we going to do online, Zoom and pivoting, I wasn't really worried about it, because we were already implementing virtual internships well before COVID. So it was just a quick transition to add a few more with alumni. And our Penn State kinesiology alumni really came forward and said, we're here to help. Let us know what we can do from all aspects, like doctors, nurses, people in the fitness industry. And it was really, truly amazing.
Yeah, I think that it's really awesome to have somebody like you in the kines department who, I mean, everybody has their own path, everyone has their own experiences, but you can talk about yours and share those to people in your internship classes and students in the different classes that you teach, because when you're in kines as a student, or any major for that matter, it can feel like a very straight path, like I've chosen this major, now I need to make another decision. Am I going to do movement science? Am I going to do applied? What are my 3 options once I choose that? Like, it's like 1 step, 2 step, 3 step in a straight line.
It's like a conveyor belt. It's like, get on board and move and move.
And that's not how your experience was in kines, and that's not how it has to be. So I think it's good to have, I think also like the internship opportunities and all the different opportunities that you provide kind of demonstrate that. It's like you can take what you're here to learn all these different skills, all of these different assets, but you can take it in so many different directions, and you can follow the straight line for a while, and then an opportunity comes up where you met somebody and you just really, really push how important, like you were just saying, alumni connection is. Like most of the opportunities that you just spoke about came because you met the right person who told you this is like going to be a great opportunity for you.
Yeah, and I always say it comes down to 2 things. One, it comes down to having the ability to open your mouth and asking.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
You have to be able to come forward and say, this is really what I wanted to know, or I was wondering if there's an opportunity. Is it a paid internship?
Yeah.
I've had many positions where I've just gone in and said, I'm willing to give a month of my time. I just want to do it because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then later down the road, somebody's like, hey, we really like her. Like, she's really doing a great job. We never thought it was going to come to this. And that's basically how I started teaching at the university.
Yeah.
It started with part-time teaching. I was working in the physical therapy, cardiac rehab. They said there was a position that was opening part-time. I went to our department. Bob Ricketts, Dr. Bob Ricketts, he missed all 3 of my meetings. Most people would say after the first meeting, you know what, forget it. He doesn't care. Nobody cares. I was persistent. He said, I missed the 2nd meeting. That's okay. Can you be at the 3rd? Yes, I can. So I go to the 3rd meeting, and he said, what do you think you can teach? And I said, Dr. Ricketts, I can teach Kines 456 because I was an undergraduate teaching assistant for Dr. Carl Stadefalk. I can teach this adapted physical education because I had a grad assistantship with the Autistic Foundation. He looked at me and he said, okay, teach it.
Yeah.
He probably thought after that 1 semester of fall of 1999, here's a kid, let her teach it. We'll never see her again. I went back to his office. This is a true story. I went back to his office. I got on my hands and knees and I said, Dr. Ricketts, please let me teach Kines 457 exercise prescription. I can change the world for these students. He's like, okay. And I never left. So it started with 16, I was teaching up to 16 credits a year, but working this other full-time job. And then eventually I said, I really enjoy this teaching more. I've already done the clinical aspect, so I morphed out of that. But it's about opening your mouth and always having your resume on your phone, because you're in an airport. Somebody says, oh my God, Penn State, or has a conversation.
Yeah.
And they will say to you, oh, send me your resume.
Yeah.
Most people will wait, 2 or 3 days and be like, I got to get it cleaned up. By that time, that individual at the other end owes you nothing. They owe you nothing. That was a conversation 3 days ago. It's already out of their mind.
Yeah.
But when you're at the airport or at that bar restaurant and they say, can I have your resume? and you pull out your phone and say, what's your email address? Click, boom. Now it's right in front of their face. They're like, whoa.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Have your resume in your photos or in your files on your phone
at all times.
You can send it out.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean...
Do you have your resume?
No. I'll put it in there now. Actually, I have it in my drive. So, yeah. Okay. Technically, I could just...
Even if you just email it to yourself and star it, and then you can forward it on. Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, right on my photos. No. I mean, it's in my phone. But, yeah. But, I mean, that's how I want to do virtual training, what I do now full-time, and do this business full-time. And I was like, you know what? I just don't think I'm going to get a good experience sitting in another gym for my internship. So I just walked into your office and I was like...
I know, yeah.
And I was like, can I do a podcast for my internship? And you were like, yeah.
I was like, finally some student comes forward and has a creative idea versus... I'm going to go in a gym, I'm going to fold a towel, I'm going to clean equipment, vacuum a floor. I'm like, you're not here for a janitorial internship.
Well,
you're here for...
Both spent hours in gyms.
Yeah. You're here for engaged learning outcomes. And when you said, I want to develop all this, I'm like, yes, please, I'll help you. I'll show you the door. But, I'm willing to help you after you graduate here in a few weeks. You always have me to turn to.
Yeah.
You always have the alumni connections. You can always come forward in the classroom.
Yeah.
You can be on my podcast someday.
Do you have a podcast?
I'm developing one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
If you need a list of equipment or things you think you might need, I don't know, where are you planning to do it?
I think I'm going to start at the university setting, and then I'll have to find out if I need to keep it there or if I can take it with me, if they have the rights to it. I'm not quite sure yet.
You do have access to the
green room
rooms,
or something.
The green rooms, media rooms. I've done some work in there, and they're amazing. Like the microphones, the setup, the sound, everything in there is amazing. Did you want to do a video podcast too?
I could do either. It doesn't.
You should do video too.
I think it's more engaging.
I love watching video podcasts.
I do too.
I know it's kind of silly, like when I'm looking at the camera, but I think like for keeping your attention span, like I'll listen to it in the car when I'm driving, but like when I'm getting ready or something, sometimes I just put it on YouTube and just watch it, and it's just entertaining.
Well, what's nice is we use Podbean, so basically I'll take the finished podcast and I'll upload it to Podbean, and they're like $10 a month. I don't know, not expensive, but they'll put it on every platform for me. So I just upload it there, and then it goes to Spotify, Apple Podcast. What's the other one?
iHeartRadio, yeah.
When
I found out we were on iHeartRadio, I was like, okay.
It's some background music.
So and then I can also upload it to YouTube for people that want to watch it. So it's just nice.
Yeah.
It's everywhere,
So once you do a podcast in Kines, in Penn State, you need to, this is just my own personal request for the future Kines students.
Of course.
You need to get it at like one of the... I'm blanking on what all of this is called, but when you're applying to Penn State, when you're going to visit...
Oh, accepted students?
Yes, like you need to get it at those tours. Because I just think, like, there wasn't... My mom did Kines, so really...
Your mother was one of my... When I taught Kines 456, she was one of my grad
really?
assistants. Yes, for the course in the laboratory.
Oh my God, it's such a small world. But...
we do all live in...
Well, whatever. So she... I think without her, I probably wouldn't be in the Kines program because she did Kines. So when I was like, I don't know what to do, but I love exercising, she was like, Kines, do Kines. But I don't think there was like something at Penn State that was like, look at this amazing Kines
There's
department.
not enough advocacy.
Yes, and I think the podcast would be a really cool way to show like students coming in, like, look at this amazing department. Like I always, after I joined the Kines department or whatever, after I was a Kines student, I hear people say all the time, oh my God, you're in Kines, that's one of the best programs in the country. I'm like, I had no idea that before my mom told me or before I joined. So I don't know, like if there's a way to
showcase.
Yeah. That would be cool because there's a lot of very awesome professors and awesome people in Kines. So yeah.
Yeah, we have a good, diverse group of individuals and a lot of great fields of study.
Yeah, and bringing in, like you were saying earlier, bringing in, like, BBH into it and other departments because...
I love to collaborate.
Yeah, because you can take all of these majors and do a million things with them. Like, it doesn't have to just be...
There's not one direct path.
There's not one direct path. Exactly. There doesn't have to be one direct path. But Okay. Thank you for all the background. I know it can be a lot saying everything, but I wanted to ask, because you know so many people and you've had so many amazing experiences that you talk about, what is one or two, whatever you can think of, one experience with somebody or one person that really stands out to you? And maybe it's the doctor you spoke about earlier, maybe it's somebody else, something somebody told you, some experience, moment, conversation that you had that today you still think about and use in your life.
I would say there's two. I had a student several years ago when I was teaching Kines 456, and she came into the laboratory one day, and I noticed she had they kind of look like worm scars on her wrist. And I kind of thought, oh my God, was she in a car accident? So I said to her, are you okay? And she said, no, I'm fine. And she covered up her wrist real quickly, and I thought, okay, maybe I'm in a boundary I shouldn't be crossing. Mm-hmm. And so about a week or two later, she came to my office and she said, I want to explain something to you. And I said, okay. She goes, I want to explain the marks on my wrist. And I said, oh, okay. She said, I cut. Mm. And I said, I didn't know what that was. I was like, what? She goes, I cut. I said, well, what do you mean you cut? She says, I take razors and I just start cutting myself. And I said, why do you do that? And she said, it kind of numbs the pain of some of my mental struggles. And I was really taken back. I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't know this even existed. So I asked her if she was okay, if she needed help, and if she needed a counselor and get her in the correct services. And then she eventually graduated. And probably about 6 years after she graduated, I received an email from her one day. And she said, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being one of the few people at this university that took time out of your schedule to care enough about me and be concerned. She said, in college, I was misdiagnosed with a mental condition, and by being prescribed 2 medications at the same time, it led her into depression, which caused her to cut.
Oh my God.
And she said, I'm cut free. I don't cut anymore. I'm a yoga instructor, world-renowned, and I just want to say thank you. I was just like, oh my God. So
I get the chills.
It gives me, I think about her all the time, knowing you just have, I have several stories of students that have said, I still have that photo of you on my desk because you saved my life when I was going to overdose on pills.
Oh my God.
So there's a lot of times, with the mental health struggles, even back then, 20 years ago, students had those issues and concerns. I'm just so glad that I was in the right place at the right time. Another student that stands out to me is a recent student from Asia, from Shanghai, China. Mm-hmm. And she was in several of my classes, and she had gone on the ACSM trip last year to Dallas, Texas with a few other Asian students from Shanghai, China. And I thought, sometimes you get along really well in a group, but now you're out to a group dinner and people congregate in their little groups. Mm-hmm. And I thought, no, I want everybody to love one another and really show this great force that we have together. So I had learned some Chinese words, and I wanted the Chinese Asian students to teach the American students different words. And they really bonded over that. And so when that student graduated in December, she wrote me a handwritten card that, just brought me to tears. I was just like, I was like, oh my God. My husband was like, did someone die? And I'm like, read this card, but do not get it wet. I said, I need to keep this. And she wrote about how a lot of times people of Asian descent come to the United States and they feel neglected or they don't feel spoken well of. Mm-hmm. And she felt very comfortable that I was willing to go outside of my comfort zone and learn a new language to help broaden the community. And she said, you're not only a professor, but you're my friend for life. Oh. And so probably not today, but in the future, she wants me to make a trip over to Shanghai, China and see her family and see their family businesses. And she's going to prosper well in the fitness industry. But that was really touching because I did it because I wanted to. I wanted to grow in my desire to know different languages and be able to say Xin Chao, Ni Hao and Gombe and different things like that. And connect. And when you do that, there's a great synergy in that approach.
Oh, that's awesome. Meeting so many people, different experiences. It's crazy. Okay. One
more question.
One more thing that I want to ask, and then we'll wrap it up, is that I want to ask. I like to ask everybody who comes on, so we can kind of connect the different people who come on and see how we all are different and have different experiences and different mindsets within fitness, exercise, movement. So what are 1 to 3? I was starting with 3, but now I feel like that's unfair. So I'm doing 1 to 3 if you can't think of 3. Beliefs that you have within the fitness industry, within movement, within exercise, something that, like, beliefs that you have that haven't changed about fitness. So, like, the fitness industry is so big and there's so many things happening all the time, and there's new people every day coming in with crazy ideas. There's a bunch of things on Instagram, like, disproving things all the time. You know, there's a whole lot of shit in the fitness industry.
I know, I get it. I see it every day. It's like,
Yeah, so what are, from your experience in fitness and exercise and movement, even in research, something, 1 to 3 things that stay true that you think will always be true?
You know, I just think in the world of fitness, people are saying a bunch of things that sound great. You know, they might say, hey, I'm a proven expert in this field of study. Mm-hmm. But can they base it on any scientific research and proof?
Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2, the body to keep moving. Like, it might sound so generic and cliche, but when you get an individual that is injured, let's say they have a lower back issue. I used to, when I worked in physical therapy, above us was orthopedic surgeons, and they were wonderful individuals, granted. However, as soon as an individual would have a surgery and be cut open for, let's say, a knee issue or ACL repair, that orthopedic surgeon would send the patient home with a Xerox piece of paper and say, do these exercises, keep taking your prescriptive Vicodin or your narcotics, check back with me in like 4 to 6 weeks, and we'll see if physical therapy should be implemented. Terrible, awful approach. Why? Number 1, they're gorked on these medications. They're not going to want to move their limbs. They're like, nobody's watching me to do the physical exercise. So the first time the physical therapist manually goes in to manipulate that body part, they're working through scar tissue at this point. So it's like,
Yeah.
So they then make an association. Physical therapist, how dare you? You're a devil. You're causing me pain. When really you should go back to that orthopedic surgeon and say, you really needed to implement physical. If you had surgery on a Wednesday, your physical therapy better at least start by Friday of that same week.
Yeah, you need to continue movement.
Early ambulation is more beneficial than bed rest. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of individuals stay in bed. Years ago, the Florence Nightingale nurses of the world, they'd say, oh, you had open heart surgery, stay in bed till the wound heals. They've done those research studies at no laboratory for the last 20 years, even in the 80s and 90s. They paid college students to lie in bed for 7 days. The only time they were allowed out of bed was to go to the restroom and just sit up in bed to eat. Mm-hmm. Then they tested them post to find out everything about their internal performance decreased.
Sounds horrible.
Oh my gosh. Mitochondrial utilization, your balance, everything. I mean, imagine when you're sick, you have the flu or you have whatever, COVID, and you're down for 2 days. The first day you get out of bed to go to the refrigerator to grab a glass of juice, you feel like you're 110 years old, right?
Yeah, you have the flu and then you have to like recover from having the flu.
So we need early intervention. Mm-hmm. So prolonged bed rest is more deleterious than early ambulation. Yeah. So movement is always the key. If you don't move it, yes, something will then
lose it.
You're going to beyond lose it. You're going to now compensate something else. Mm-hmm. But I strongly believe, you know, with the fitness industry, there's a lot of tools and gadgets and devices out there. Like, hey, we have this, take this. We got this over the head kinetic chain motion exercise. They all seem great. I'm not saying they couldn't work, but you need to know that you have a great personal trainer or great fitness specialist that understands your personal capabilities. You can't just look at a person and say, oh, she looks good. She looks like an athlete. Anybody can dress in Lululemon and play the role and have
me in Lululemon right now.
Are you in Lulu?
Yeah.
I love Lulu. I've been buying it. I have stock in the company. I do. I bought it. I bought it like 15 years ago. But I love Lululemon. But people dress in these nice fads and they play the role well. And you think, oh yeah, you must be into this. Anybody can dress the role, but can you really seek it out? And so you can't look at someone and say,
know who you're talking to. Yeah.
You have to know your audience and test them.
Yeah.
So you have to observe it and measure it and quantify it. And if you can quantify it, you're going to be the best personal trainer or best functional movement screen individual in the country.
Yeah.
But you can't just say, oh, your hamstrings are tight. Bend over and touch your toes, you have tight hamstrings. You have to know how to process backwards and go above and below the injury and find and seek what the true problem is. It could be an ankle bone out. It could be something in the cervical region not moving functionally. So those are the great individuals of the world, not the people just trying to sell massive quantity products.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you both. This was my first time. I feel like pixie dust needs to come out.
First podcast.
Podcast
is always a fun podcast, and I like these podcasts because it's like a moment to kind of talk about yourself and tell your story and where you're at, and super fun.
You made a great poster for your internship.
Thank
that was
you.
Wonderful. And I wish you the best in graduation here in a few
Thank
weeks.
you.
And stay connected.
Okay.
You have my cell phone number. Stay connected.
And if you need help with your podcast,
I know who I'm calling.
Yeah.
I'm coming out to the compound. And
come out to the compound. We'll get you all set up.
As long as your dad brings the licorice, that's all I care about. He presented me with red licorice on the way in.
Every time Dad walks in the house, he has some type of gummy candy in his hand.
I like that.
So
it's a burst. I like it.
All right. Well, this was Lori Gravish, and thanks for listening, everybody. You can look into that camera.
Thank you so much.
Okay. See you next. Oh wait, should I?
I know you're saying 1, 2, 3.
I got carried away. 1, 2, 3.
see you next time at Mobilefitlab After Hours.
Bye.